Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great honor to be here with you and to be right at the beginning of this day, which is very well populated, so that's good to see. I should remember last time I spoke to a group like this, Nuffield scholars, international scholars, was in Adelaide a couple of years ago. It was an international conference. And afterwards I found out that you videotape everything and put it on YouTube. So I just gotta make sure that's all good. Yeah, leadership and adapting to change. For me, a little bit an unusual topic to talk about. Usually I speak about banking or finance or economics or agriculture sometimes even. So now about leadership, and for me leadership actually is something you do. And you don't talk about so much. So being asked to do this and having accepted the invitation prompted me to think about leadership a little bit and then try to talk about it to you. So as one of my colleagues said, you're going to get out of your comfort zone. Well, you'll be the witness of that and the judge afterwards, hopefully. So here we go.
Excuse me, can we make the amplifier be a little bit more efficient, please?
Yeah, is this better? Yep. Is this better?
Improving.
Improving, oh, okay. So now we go beyond my capabilities, because I can talk in it. But there must be a knob on a machine. Yeah? That's where my technology stops. But until we found the knob, I'll be speaking in the mic. And I'll try to speak slowly. All right, here we go. So who is a good leader? Before we go into what is a good leader, we thought about, okay, who is a good leader? Just to have some examples. And you might recognize some of the faces, and you also see that deliberately I did not update it. So there's one person in here whose leadership has been challenged recently. But he was a good leader. And he might not have been now, according to a lot of people, but at a point in time people felt he was a good leader. It goes to show for me that leadership is personal, it's time-bound, it's circumstance-bound. And so people in here, I mean, a room full of mostly Australians, and you see a Kiwi there. And I think most of you, although the All Blacks beat you and beat you and beat you, you will recognize that Richie McCaw is a great leader. So if we have these as good leaders, then the question is, what makes a good leader? So looking it up a little bit in the books that are available and the websites these days, you get to quite a few words that come with good. It's going a little faster than it should be, because here we are with the words that come with good leadership, and they will resonate well with all of you to a certain extent, and also with me. So based upon this, what we've done is we've said, okay, for me or for us, it's a personal story probably, for me, what makes a good leader? And I picked 5 attributes of that slide that actually believe that are proper. So the first one is flexibility and open to change. And I'll talk about those 5 in a bit more depth later on. The ability to learn and share. Honesty, transparency and predictability, and they come together. Communication and perspective. And I think those 5 I'd like to concentrate on a little bit in the coming minutes and share with you some of the experiences I've had in those fields, which actually make them, for me, very important elements to lead. But just a little bit about myself. So as David said in the introduction, I've been around the world a bit. Actually 3 places where I've had the opportunity to work most and spent a bit more time than just as I did research for my master's in Central America. That was just under a year, and probably too short to really say that that was an experience that was really long and lasting. These are the 3 countries that actually I've been able to work longer and live and adjust to circumstances. You might think I have a passion for those 3 colors. which potentially I do, because all three of these countries, and you might recognize them. So there's Australia, you might have heard of that. In the middle is Chile, which indeed I was before, and to the left is the Netherlands. Not sure how well you can see the picture, but does anybody see anything particular about the Netherlands here? To the extent that, so this is not in scale, mind you. So Australia being 189.2 times the Netherlands wouldn't fit in here. Chile and Australia are sort of, that's sort of okay. Chile probably a little bit not as tall as it looks. On the chart in the Netherlands, I need to make an apology to my Belgian colleagues, because whoever made this picture sort of conquered Belgium. And so the lower part, the lower blue, predominantly is the Flemish-speaking part of Belgium. And I know there's sometimes a desire in the Netherlands to conquer that part of Belgium. We haven't done so. And you can see it by the white dot. That is Brussels, and around Brussels people speak French. Right, so that's what gives it away. Anyway, I had the great opportunity to live in those countries, to live there with my family, to work for Rabobank, and actually to learn what it is to adjust and to be flexible. And actually, flexibility was what I also needed when I came from Chile to Australia. And for the ones of you familiar with yoga, maybe you can explain to me which position this is. I labeled it windmill in the 21st century, but I'm not sure whether that is the appropriate name. But it does show you have to be flexible, and that's the intention of this picture. I remember coming from Chile to Australia, and in Chile we had acquired a little bank, which was an old family-style bank with a beautiful boardroom and a beautiful CEO room on the top floor of the building, and the only person allowed in was the chair and the CEO, and everybody else on invitation of one of those two, which was actually a delight, you can imagine. So you really control your day, more or less. So I came to Australia, and I found that the bank was headquartered in Sydney, Darling Park, and worked according to a principle called open space. And that was really what it was. So there was all these desks, and people were sitting there, and somebody pointed me to my desk. And I gently smiled, and thought that was the first sign of Australian humor. Until it dawned upon me that there was reality. And I made myself a bit of a promise, and I said, okay, you're going to a new country, a new place, new bank, new colleagues. Just try to be neutral for a while, and try to take it all in, and not jump to conclusions. And give yourself, there's these wise people who say, take 100 days before you make major decisions. 100 days, really. So I said to myself, okay, 100 days starting now. And I can tell you, it took me really 48 hours. And I called somebody over and said, can we just build a little office somewhere? Because, this is not going to work for me. This is too much. This is not going to work. And well, that's the other thing about this beautiful country. When you are the CEO and you say something, it all of a sudden happens, right? So I got my little office, but the office is going to go. So as of 2 months from today, my office is gone, and we'll transform the whole organization into what we call an agile workspace. Over those years, so the first adjustment was getting from a luxury office in Chile into a work floor in Australia, and adjusted to me. But now, over those 5 years, I found actually that all of us need to adjust to a new environment. And when the lease in Darling Park came up, it's coming up next year, but when we started to look for new premises, we actually looked also at the opportunity to change the way we work. And there's an awful lot of evidence in the world that if you go into a more agile workspace, if you go to a workspace where actually people have the opportunity to sit down and work according to the needs of their job at that point in time, you will create a much better work environment. And the bank has done that in the Netherlands, and we're going to do that here as well. But that means that I'll be the first one to actually sacrifice my office, and we'll be able to sit in an open workspace, but not on a fixed desk. The new environment is such that you will go to various locations in the building that cater for various types of work. So there's parts of the bank where you can sit actually in silence, where people are not allowed to speak or take phone calls. And gradually there's 5 different zones. You move it to zones where there's more collaboration, actually where there's very creative team working with a lot of noise to it. And so the flexibility that brings with it is one that actually for me personally is very stimulating and something I really look forward to. And as you can see on the slide, we labeled this whole project Field because it brings the flexibility for people to work. It brings the innovation that we need in the bank and efficiency because of the 6 floors we have now. In this new mode, we'll go back to 5 floors. So we'll reduce the footprint, which means that we will be reducing our cost base, which means that we don't have to increase our margins for the clients in the room. But it also means that the flexibility allows us to have a more diverse workspace, because it means that people are there to do their job. Work is something you do. It's not a place where you go to. And that's the slogan we've given them. And that means that you have to do something, you do it in the office. You can also sometimes do it at home, you can do it with the client. We create the mobility that comes with it. And that allows us also to have more diversity in the workspace, because it means that people can adjust their life rhythm and their work balanced rhythm better, because the opportunity is there in the workspace, in the work environment. So this is a very important project that will actually a change that we're having, which will have an impact on the culture in the bank. But I think for me personally, looking back at what happened over those almost 6 years that I've been in Australia now, it was quite interesting to notice how I went from within 48 hours wanting an office, doesn't matter how. It turned out to be a nice office, but I would have settled for anything with 4 walls and a door you can occasionally close. Most of the time it's open. It was open, I should say, because it's going to go, and I'm glad about it. The second feature that I was going to talk to you about is on the ability to learn and share. And one, well, you probably recognize this picture. If this is the idea of sharing, and then it's going to end in tears. So I think as a leader, you need to have that ability to learn and to share, to progress. Every leader learns, and every leader needs to teach as well. But I think certainly within the bank, we come to a point where we say the leader or somebody higher up in the hierarchy does not always have the answers, and should acknowledge that he or she doesn't always have the answers. It's about getting it right together. So learning, yeah, and learning from each other, irrespective of where you sit in the organization or irrespective of which organization you belong to. And as a bank, we've tried to sort of work along those lines as well. Last year, some of you might remember it, when we organized the F20, the Food 20, which was preceding the G20, which was held there in Brisbane. So we organized the F20 in Sydney last year, which was really our attempt to bring people together to learn from each other. People from all parts in the value chain, but also domestically and internationally, scientists, policymakers, everybody around the theme of creating a solution or a path towards finding a solution for the potentially emerging global food crisis. That was really, for us, the way to add our little bit as a bank in bringing people together and trying to get our heads around, okay, what can we do? Where does innovation sit? How can we make sure that it's available for everybody? So that's one example. The other example I'd like to give you here, where I think that sharing is part of good leadership, is in the work that we try to do as a bank with our client councils in Australia and New Zealand. Some of you might be familiar with those. Client councils are groups of clients we gather around our branches in regions, sometimes a few branches together, where actually what we're asking our clients is to tell us where to go. You know that Rabobank is a cooperative bank, so in the Netherlands we are steered by our members, who actually say where they think the bank should be active in and where the relevance of the bank lies for them. The only reason to be for us is our members. And you know they have no financial incentive in the bank either. The capital is not of the members, the capital is of the bank. But here in Australia, being a subsidiary of the Netherlands, we have a different legal form, but we want to create, but we work according to the same values, and we want to create a mechanism whereby our clients can actually steer the bank better. And so we're slowly but surely creating all these client councils in both Australia and New Zealand actually. And client councils will then be chaired by clients themselves, and they will be our guidance. And when, for instance, when Barnaby Joyce came out with his white paper and asked everybody to write submissions We made one as Rabobank, but before sending it actually to Canberra, we gave it to our client councils, and we said, this is what we think needs to be said, but please help us, because together our voice is probably more powerful than just of a bank. And I think that's one of these things where we want to learn, we want to teach, and we want to cooperate. And I think that as a leader, and we want to be the leader in food and agribusiness, that's what we feel we should do when it comes to learning and sharing. Next one, very important, honesty, transparency, and predictability. I think there's a Dutch saying which says, honesty lasts longest. So I looked it up in the dictionary, and you would say, honesty is the best policy. I think that's almost a translation, and it is true. If you're honest, if you're transparent, if you're predictable, you lose a lot of ballast in conversations. You lose a lot of turmoil, a lot of noise that you don't need. Just be honest. I think again here, as a bank, that's what we try to do, and it's not always easy, but the honest conversations that we want to have with our clients about how the business is going, the honest conversations when we believe it's not going as it should be, and clients should consider potentially reducing their footprint, preserving some of their equity by actually shrinking their business. Those are very tough conversations to have, but they are the honest conversations. And we really encourage all of our people to have those conversations with clients, as we try to have them in-house amongst ourselves. It's also the conversations we have about honesty when we meet new clients in the field, and actually we find that our appetite for risk is not the same as theirs. And so you can have bankers that actually want to write all the deals they can, but we have certain standards that we live by, which we have to communicate very clearly and transparently, and not waste anybody's time. But being honest and transparent and predictable means that those people, those clients that would like to, potential clients, if they come back to the bank a couple of years later, have given it some reflection, and it does happen, and say, listen, potentially you were right, and maybe we were a bit too risky. Can we still have a conversation about it? They should find that the bank still has the same view, and the people in the bank still have the same view, because that makes it all too much easier. And again, for the bank, it's something that's built on almost 120 years of experience, so that's what we stick to for a reason. But they're not easy conversations to have, because bankers sometimes pride themselves on doing more deals for the sake of doing more deals, and that's not what the bank stands for, and that's not what we believe a leading long-term bank should stand for. Communication, another critical element of good leadership. The thing with communication is, as I said with learning, it goes up and down, and it goes left and right. So in order to communicate well, you need to be passionate, and you need to talk about it, but also you need to be aware of the various stakeholders that you have, and need to address young and old, and you need to address left and right. One of the things that was a highlight for me when we started in the bank talking about how can we improve communication, we let all of our senior leaders go through an assessment of their skills and development potential and their lifestyle inventories, it's called in more psychological terms. And one of the weaknesses that I found, that was found in me from review from people around me, we do this what they call 360 review, was actually that my communication skills were very good with the people who work for me and the people who would sort of sit with me in teams. But there was a bit of a deficiency in my communication skills with the people who I report to. And to be honest, I did recognize that, because I believe the bank sends me away, far, far away, actually, not because they want to get rid of me, but yes, because they want me to do the job for them. And I felt that I need not communicate with them as much as they thought I should communicate with them. I thought I'd just get the job done, and the bank's going great here, and that should be enough. But through this very interesting feedback loop, actually, I did realize that I should pay a little bit more attention to the big dog. Although he looks very charming on this picture. I mean, he is not at all, right? And so it's great to be able to learn from those little tools where all of us still can improve. And for me, it's still one of my weak spots, I'll be honest with you. I still think that I should be doing the job with my people, with my team, with my client, but it is not my bank. Right? If it was my bank, that'd be a different story. It's not my bank. And being aware of these things helps tremendously because it means that you can actively work on it. It will probably never be my strongest card, but I genuinely believe that if you have something that you're not as good in, you need to bring it to an acceptable level, not be the star in it. So you need to be the star in the things that you're really good at. But this is very important. And the last one, actually, I think that was on my list is perspective. I truly believe that to be a good leader, you need to have perspective. You need to be able to look at things from a different angle. You need to be able to reflect on things a bit. This picture, for instance, can be looked upon in various ways. And so you might see actually somebody who appears to be a man, I would admit, holding the sun. But he could also be showing his friends how big the fish was he caught last night. Or he could actually be holding up his hands at the gunpoint from somebody below that little hill. It could be all sorts of things, but just imagining what it could be rather than going with your first instance is usually pretty good. But you need to have the time and the opportunity to do it. You need time to reflect. And for me personally, one of the best investments I've made in myself, if I may say so, was 2 years ago when I had the opportunity to take a 3-month sabbatical leave. And here in the country, we call these things long service leave. Within Rabobank, because we're a cooperative and we don't have shares and all that, for senior management, there's no long-term incentive schemes. But what we do is allow our senior management to take 3 months of sabbatical leave every 5 years. And I took that 2 years ago, and that was just amazing. And some of my colleagues, when they take it, they go to Harvard or they go to another good business school or whatever. But I just spent 3 months with my family, and which was amazing. And it assured me that my life in the bank, which sometimes goes against life with the family because you simply can't be in 2 places at the same time, that life with my family still goes on. And that when the day I retire, which there will be a day, or at least travel less, I'll still have a fantastic family, and those 3 months gave me the opportunity to acknowledge that. And just being there with my youngest son, who's 14, and take him to school. And my wife went over to see our daughter who lives in Holland, so it all worked out beautifully. But to be there and bring my youngest son to school and prepare his sandwiches and all that. And then when my wife got back and I was back in the office and he missed the school bus, he would call me in the office. And he said, "Dad, I missed the bus." And I said, "Oh, your mum is back." "Oh, okay." But it's amazing. And it also made me realize, so we have 24, 21, 14, that I actually, it's a pity I missed that, to be able to do that with the 2 older ones. I did heaps of other things with them, of course, but it was such a great opportunity. And after those 3 months, I went back to the office really very much energized to go back into the job because I was assured that everything back home was still very good, and it gave me the opportunity to do it and to think about life in a whole different manner. So that for me, I think being able to reflect it, put it in place, and yes, we're all committed about the jobs we do, and we love it, but usually there's something more as well, which sometimes is neglected. And in my case, actually it was brilliant. So, this is a little bit, I think, this was the big picture. I think, as I said, it's different for all of us. It's different in different circumstances, different times, different companies you work for, businesses you're in, sectors you're in. I think what I want to sort of show you very briefly as well is the levels where these things can happen, because we can talk about big corporations or we can talk about... This is 3 examples of what we as Rabobank believe are leaders as well. When we did recently our research into productivity in Australia and New Zealand, and where we actually found, for the ones of you who haven't read it, where we found that there's a serious concern about the growth of productivity in agriculture in Australia, and actually where it is moving off, where we see competing countries actually increase their productivity. We found 3 examples, or we found more, but we wanted to highlight in our report 3 examples, which I just want to show you very briefly here, of people who are leaders in their own field, who are trying to make that change, adopting to change, be innovative and be at the forefront. And this, I assume, will resonate well with you here in the room as well, because that is also what you're trying to do within Nuffield and with your scholars, and everybody continuously tries to push it out. And therefore all of you are leaders. All of you are leaders in your own fields. This is the family in New Zealand, for instance. It's brilliant to see the little boy there who sort of, he looks like he's holding a toy. That's a drone, and he actually manages it on the phone. So he's 14, and he does the drone work for that. And that's amazing. So they work together with a whole heap of investments, but they've managed to get up to the top 2% of farmers in New Zealand there. We have the Queensland McIntyre family on the cotton side there, increasing their yields year after year after year. Amazing story. And also, that's very close here, what Nestlé is doing with Uncle Toby's, and actually trying to invest in that value chain to make sure that there's leadership there, which allows everybody to continue to have a good business. So concluding, I think this is for me what sums it up a bit. This is something we use in the bank quite a bit. Bringing back good old Charles Darwin and his saying that it's not the strongest of species that survives, nor the most intelligent, and we jokingly sometimes say also nor the biggest, but it's the one most responsive to change. And I think that is true at every element, and it takes, I think, good leaders to truly understand that and to bring others along, that we have to respond and adjust to change. That is the key. So thank you. Questions we do at the end, right? So I go to the next slide, which indeed says thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity, for listening to me. I hope you found glimpses of it of interest. And if so, or if not so, we'll have time for questions and comments. I mean, you can also just simply say that you like it or not. You can like or not like it. Right? Thank you very much.